If you want to collect all obtainable cards in Duels of the Roses, 734 of them come much easier than others. As it turns out, cards such as Blue Eyes White Dragon are unironically the easiest cards to obtain in the whole entire game. The list for all these passwords and how to acquire all these cards in this video will be in the description below, so check that out if you're interested. While passwords seem like cheating, there are a handful of cards in the game that actually can't be obtained without entering in their password. These passwords were actually given out by the developers around the time of the game's release, and were present in guides for the game, as well as shared across websites such as CheatCC and Super Cheats. Some cards such as Cruel and Skullbird are present in a starter deck, but with the exception of a password that was never given out by the developers, there was no other way to obtain them apart from entering random names, picking different decks, and transferring those cards over to your main save file. But if we want to look at the rarest cards in the game, we need to look at methods of how to obtain cards other than passwords. With the exception of all the cards that are literally unobtainable, including all of your favorites, such as Mirror Force, Ryoku, all the ritual monsters, fusion monsters above 2500 attack, and other random outliers such as Nekigel No. 2 and Rabbit Horseman, there are a handful of cards that are harder to obtain than these passworded cards. These methods are more difficult because there is an element of randomness to them. The most common method of obtaining cards from opponents, or even yourself in the custom duel, is the graveyard slot reels. When you win a duel, the contents of your opponent's graveyard and the opponent's deck leader are put in a slot machine minigame. And if you land on any of these cards, you will obtain that card up to 1 copy. Some cards actually can only be obtained by this method. The Stern Mystic is an example. There is no actual way to obtain this card in the game apart from gaining it in the graveyard slots. So because Grandpa is the only person who has one, you have to duel Grandpa and then defeat him while the Stern Mystic is in his graveyard, and then land on the Stern Mystic to obtain that card. Keep in mind that not all cards actually show up in the graveyard slots. Generally, really strong cards are omitted from the slots. There are also random outliers such as Armored Starfish, which I can't really fully understand or explain why it's not present in the slots as it's nothing special, so it's probably an error or an oversight, but anyways. There are other cards that you can obtain through the graveyard slots even if they're not present in the slots themselves. This is by the rare 3 in a row method. If you line up 3 cards in a row in the graveyard slots, you will get a rare card. And there's actually quite a handful of these. In fact, there's 30 different cards you can get from lining up 3 cards in the graveyard slots. 8 of these 30 cards are tied to lining up one specific card, and then that card will always give you the same result. So for example, if you line up 3 Dark Energies in the graveyard slots, you will get Dark Hole 100% of the time. While Dark Hole can also be obtained via a password, for some of these cards, this is the only way to obtain them. So for a monster such as Dark Magician Girl, the only way to obtain this is to line up 3 Dark Magicians in a row in the graveyard slots, which makes Dark Magician Girl one of the rarer cards in the whole game. If you line up 3 of any other card in the graveyard slots, the game will give you one of the remaining 22 cards randomly. Some of these cards, such as Flame Swordsman and Dark Magician, are actually obtainable through the regular slots themselves, so they're not particularly rare. However, if you line up some of these monsters in the graveyard slots, you'll get a fancy alternative artwork for them. And while some of these cards are obtainable via other methods, there are a couple outliers. Summon Skull and the right leg of the Forbidden One are not obtainable by any other means. So because you have a 1 in 22 chance to get either of these cards when you line up 3 cards in the graveyard slots, these could also be considered some of the rarest cards in the game. Another method to earn more cards is Reincarnation. Every 5 duels you tally in the overworld will allow you to reincarnate. Simply go to the deck edit screen, making sure you have at least 1 full deck, highlight a card in your trunk you are happy to sacrifice, and after a few seconds, you'll see the word Reincarnation flashing at the bottom of the screen if you are eligible to reincarnate. Now, if you press L3 on a card you want to sacrifice, you'll destroy that card to earn 3 new ones around the same deck cost. And these cards are in the Reincarnation pool, which includes some cards that can't actually be obtained by any other method. This includes 13 cards including the left leg and right arm of Exodia that can only be obtained via this method. Keep in mind that if you reincarnate a monster, you're more likely to get monsters given back to you, and vice versa. So, if you're after a Widespread Ruin or Diane Kid of the Cure Master, reincarnate any spells and traps you have spare copies of around 60 deck cost for the best results. Because there are a lot of monsters around 15 deck cost, cards such as Eye Armor, Mucus Yoke, and the 2 Exodia pieces are honestly some of the most annoying cards to get in the whole game, and this makes them very, very rare. Now for the final and perhaps most obscure way to obtain cards, the hidden card find method. This is quite literally a hidden leader ability that only some monster types get when you rank them up to the major rank, which is a rank that you usually only reach well after you've already beaten both sides of the game. If you have a major rank of any of the following monster types, and you move your deck leader to a specific tile on one of the opponent's maps, it will give you a card that you honestly probably can already get via other methods, even in the graveyard slots, but the exception to this are almost all the immortals in the game. While Slate Warrior is only obtained via a password, and Mucus Yoke is only available through reincarnation, the remaining immortals are only obtainable through 2 methods: the graveyard slots and the hidden card find. And because nobody in the overworld actually drops these, you'll have to obtain these cards first through the hidden card, then you can get duplicate copies by dueling Deckmaster K in the custom duel while you have copies of the immortals in your deck. The only other way to obtain the immortals is to duel Deckmaster I, which requires you to have the Japan exclusive Pocket Station in the second memory card slot of your PlayStation 2 when you enter the custom duel. The devs are probably laughing at the rest of the world for that one, or actually probably not, they probably actually don't care. Thank you very much for watching, and if you would like to see any more Duelist of the Roses content, make sure you click the playlist in the top left of the screen, and subscribe if you want to see the next videos coming up.